And this is another attack at public safety. Thank you for being here today, but a particular concern is the growing number of assaults on bus drivers. Not only are they heinous acts perpetrated in public servants, they also pose a grave danger to passengers, pedestrians, and other vehicles, as some of these assaults happen while the driver is operating his vehicle. My bill, H.R. 1139, Transit Worker Pedestrian Protection Act, has 100 bipartisan co-sponsors, would provide FTA funds for transit agencies to install barriers to protect the driver and keep the bus operating safely. It also addresses the issue of blind spots in modern buses with large bus frames and side mirrors that prevent them from, it blocks their view of pedestrian crossing the street. This has led to multiple severe accidents around the country. Some buses in the U.S. and many buses in Europe do not have this impediment, this large visual obstructions for the driver. It requires a transit agency to address and remove significant blind spots from the bus driver workstation. And I've personally recommended that before they buy any buses, they talk to the manufacturer for those changes in the buses. Do you have any concerns about the assaults on bus drivers and the blind spots in the transportation safety hazard? And should we address this issue in Congress?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I appreciate the question. The NTSB has not looked at assaults on rail or transit operators, but any injury or fatality is a concern to us, of course. We have issued recommendations on collision avoidance systems like automatic emergency braking or forward collision avoidance, which could help with other issues, but we haven't specifically looked at the particular issue you're talking about.
Would you mind looking at it? We had
Absolutely.
People coming, bus drivers, actually tell us all the heinous acts committed on them.
Yes, in fact, we're meeting with a few folks in a few days on that.
Ms. Napolitano, from the standpoint of just being a cop, that's a felony, it's a criminal act, and that always causes us concern. The implications for that, should the driver be operating a bus, are huge, because there's implications for all the passengers that are maybe on that bus, let alone the size difference on the vehicles. There are some communities that have had problems in that area. Not everyone has that same kind of a problem that I could see from the stats. We've actually looked at that a little bit as it applies to the National Capital Region to see if it had implications for us in our city. But the potential jeopardy for the community is huge that's on that bus.
Thank you.
I think the transportation of the future certainly relies on multimodal, integrating how does transit operate with other sources, pedestrian, bikes, and regular vehicles. I think infrastructure as we move forward needs to change to accommodate those areas so that we do have separation between that. And certainly, you know, it is a major concern when you get pedestrian traffic moving across in front of a large vehicle.
They can't see them.
There needs to be there's a concern there that they need to be able to integrate with each other.
Anybody else? Well, it is a problem. I've met with the Los Angeles Transportation Department, and they tell me, I met with the drivers, and they tell me that's happened more often than not, especially on routes that are in neighborhoods that are questionable, and especially if they have new drivers assigned to those areas that are less than knowledgeable about the area. There's another question I'd like to have. Mr. Sewell, your testimony talks about the importance of designing the built environment, though policies such as complete streets to consider all road users. You note that engineering is moving to a safe system approach to design infrastructure. Is the federal highway policy currently set up to advance a systems approach and related policies, or do we need to make adjustments to ensure the states and cities design projects that prioritize safety?
I appreciate your question, and I was recently in LA, and I think it's a great example of rapid evolution happening in the transportation network and us poorly responding to it. And I think it goes back to answer your question more specifically, giving local control over how those transportation systems can respond to changes in how people want to move is the way to go. I think that would have been a great help to a city like Los Angeles in responding to the emergence of scooters and things like that.
Well, thank you for the answer. One of the things I would recommend, especially in California, you have the public access system, and you talk about information training for the public, like in motorcycle training. You should develop PSA or encourage the industry to do that, and go it's free for public safety would be a tremendous help to the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much.